I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm so excited for this video. Salutations, friends. My name is Brianna Sukiyon Bond, otherwise known as No Ordinary Scholar. And honestly, this is gonna be... I hit record and I was so excited for this video. This is going to be a video where we talk about bad book parents. So an issue that is getting more traction, but I feel isn't fully settling in with people, is calling out bad parents for behavior that is harmful to their kids. Frankly, I could do an entire video on the oppressive history of they didn't mean to, so you can't be upset, on how children are an oppressed class, and how all of this is significantly worse because of how we know marginalized parents did go through hell, and then just also love in general makes it complicated. And none of that is even like taking into account intersectionality with marginalized kids. But what we're going to do today is I have some examples from some books that I've read that have examples ranging from, you know, this is rough, to, oh my god, this is actually just abuse. And we're going to break down all of these, but keep in mind the running theme. Bleh. But keep in mind the running theme for all of this is kids deserve better. They do. Kids just deserve better. Our first book is Meet Cute Diary, and just letting you know, I'm throwing up the thumbnails for the streams that I did on these books. I'll also link them down below, put them in the iCard, whichever direction that is. The whole gambit, the whole shebang, everything's happening. So in the story Meet Cute Diary, our main character, Noah, comes out as trans to his parents and is dropped off to spend the summer with his older brother while both their parents look for a new house on the other end of the country from whence they came. There are several issues that I have with the parenting in this book. So we're gonna go over the issues, as well as just like the main reason I think the issues cropped up. Firstly, the dorm, apartment, whatever, I don't remember what specifically it was, that the older brother has. There was literally nowhere for Noah to sleep. And he literally ends up sleeping in the closet. And the parents knew that. But like, you're not gonna convince me that these parents dropped their kid off for college and didn't take a look at their dorm room? Absolutely not. Next is they give Noah a credit card to use for the summer and have zero conversations with him about how to use it. Like, they never even explain the expectations of the card with him, and so he ends up going over this budget that he didn't know about, and they don't call him to tell him they've cut him off, so he doesn't find out until he's gotten something from a cafe and the card bounces. And so again, they don't tell him that he's suddenly has no money, just let him figure that out the hard way, which is not good. And they also leave him with no money. Like, they didn't even be like, hey, okay, you're using too much money. If you can't figure this out, you have this much money, like, you have this much money before we cut you off, or anything like that. Or like, you have this much money, you have this much time to get a job. None of that. He just has no money until he gets his own job. And that means literally no money for food, necessities, nothing. And like, that's until he gets his first actual check from something. Like, did they think he was going to spawn money out of nowhere, or were they expecting his brother to just feed him? In which case, that's not his brother's job. You know, like, these are absolutely things that should have been discussed. And honestly, it's super clear that the parents are just thrown off by Noah coming out, and they are stressed about misgendering or invalidating him. So they're avoiding him to kind of get used to it, practice everything. But he deserves better. Kids deserve better than to suddenly have insecure food situations because you can't figure out how to communicate with them anymore. Because even during that time where you need space to practice, they still need a parent. And they have needs that need to be met. And in this case, that just kind of stopped getting done. Again, not terrible, but like we said, kids deserve better. Hey, and if you love talking about bad book parents, I've got a couple for you. We've got the Queen of Thieves series written by yours truly. We get to some really, really rough parenting in book 4. All 4 books are available, so you can get 1 through 4 individually. You can also get the ebook of the bundle for those. That's one of the bad book parents. We also have the new release, Imani and Aaliyah's Fashion Bible, Imani's Mother. Check this out. Links are down below. Book number 2 that we're going to talk about is Love Times Infinity. This is a story about a girl named Michi who is the product of a rape. Before her abandoning her mother acted like she hated her, even going so far as to say, "I wish I'd gotten an abortion." And now she's pretty grown and she's applying for colleges, but on a lot of college essays, they're asking the question, "Where do you come from?" And she just doesn't know how to answer that. There are 2 things that I want to discuss with regards to not mom, but Jima. Number 1. One day, Michi is at a lunch table with her fellow classmates and they start talking about abortion and she gets very triggered and starts having a panic attack. The lovely, amazing, best book boy I've ever read, Derek De La Rosa, helps her leave the situation and get out of the scenario, breathe, and come down from that panic attack. And Jima scolds her for running away when things get hard. No. Just a no. Firstly, you can't strong will yourself out of a panic attack. You can't strong will yourself out of any mental health episode. Could it be that the character is supposed to be ignorant about mental health topics, but she's just trying her best? Sure, that's a common and very real thing. The text never calls her out on it. The text never says that's wrong. And that's an issue I have in another book that we'll talk about. I'm not recording it today, but I'll record it, write the script, do everything later. But these are very strong statements to make about situations, and especially with Jima being kind of an authority figure in the scenario, I do think it would have been good to have something say, "Hey, that's just not how this works." The second issue, and the reason why I do think that text just never does get around to calling her out when she is wrong, when she is causing harm, is Jima spends most, if not the whole book, invalidating Michi's feelings about her mom, telling her, "Oh, she loves you. She would never say stuff like that." First and foremost, gaslighting. That's gaslighting. And also very much rooted in this toxic pedestal mothers are put on. I hate it. But also, spoiler alert, we do end up meeting Michi's mom, who admits to everything, including telling her daughter she wishes she had an abortion. And again, never in the text does the story acknowledge the harm and actual genuine pain it caused Michi to have the woman that means so much to her constantly ignoring her and her experience in the scenario because it's your mom. Not great. Really, really not great. Kids deserve better. This next step that we're going to take is going to actually cross over into a show of dangerous parenting, and that is with the Luis Ortega Survival Club. Our main character, Ariana, is a semi-verbal autistic girl. Woo woo! And because of this, she has a really hard time making friends. Instead, she ends up spending most of her time playing therapist for her mother, who vents about work, friends, and a man she wants to cheat on Ariana's dad with. All of that is deeply inappropriate. All of that is deeply inappropriate. After the least fortunate series of events, Ariana joins a little group and they start hanging out, making friends. Her mom cheats and implodes her marriage. Ariana is caught in the middle and she's trying to do this thing that she had mentioned to her mother before. She's trying to go out with her friends and do this thing. But mom wants to vent to her, so not only is Ariana not allowed to go, it is almost a punishment for not spending her time with her mother when her mother needs her. If you're not understanding the vibe that's going on here, if you're not getting why this is kind of bothering me, think of Jeanette McCurdy's mother, and you'll get it. The issue is Ariana is caught up in a situation of emotional incest with her mother. Her parent is relying on her for emotional needs that should be happening with an adult. It should be going on in an adult relationship. It should not be your child. It should not be a child, but especially the power dynamic of it being your child. When she starts to pull away because she's just forming relationships that are age appropriate, she's forming her own life, her mother forcibly isolates her. Again, that power dynamic. Remember back at the beginning when I said kids are in a press class? Her mother is forcibly isolating her, forcing her to stay in her range, stay with her, stay in her home, so that way she can continue to use her as this emotional dependent being. And you know what? That's not the parent I want to talk about today. Continuing on in the story, Ariana runs away to spend the day with her dad, and she starts venting, saying kid stuff like, she sucks, I hate her, she's a bitch. And he responds, we will not talk bad about your mother. And it ends there. Now, was what Ariana was saying crass? Was it immature and just not a great representation of the situation she was in? Yeah, she's a fucking kid. I don't hold it against her that she does not have the proper language to describe the, frankly, abuse that she is going through with her mother. But if you are claiming to be someone that is going to protect this child, the least you can do, ask some follow-up questions. Even just try and figure out why she thinks these things. Best case scenario, you have made it clear to your child that you don't feel like figuring out how to navigate this, so they're on their own. And a kid should not be left on their own when they're trying to figure out a situation with an adult, especially one that has so much more power over them. But this wasn't the best case scenario. So now we have a scenario in which it is up to the abuser to decide if they want to stop abusing, because when the victim tries to get help, no one will listen long enough for her to get any real help. Not to mention the damage of having someone with situational mutism that is trying to seek help from someone that they trust only to be shushed. Kill me. Kill me now, please. It would be mercy. It would be mercy. And that's just not a great trend you want to see in a world where so many kids are often abused by people closest to them. It's not great. It's not great. Now, I'm sure it's way too late and people have already started ranting about how I just want to tear down BIPOC authors. I highly recommend you check out Jessie on YouTube's video on problematic BIPOC books and their explanation of how and why we should critique the communities that we come from. Yes, there are probably way more polite ways to talk about these than I could figure out, #tism. But also at the end of the day, all the books I've talked about thus far, I've given 5 out of 5 stars with. I obsess over these books. I could not recommend them enough. The next one, on the other hand, though, the next one we can't say the same for. Not even a little bit. Not even a tish. Oh, God. Let me read this book. I'm tired. This book makes me tired. This book made me so tired. Let's talk about The Dark Place. A thing this book did well with regards to the parents is that it did a good job of showing how it made Hailey feel, how her parents were making her feel, but it literally, it could have done such a good job of talking about the oppressive history of Black people, just kind of trying to blow off mental health, blow off traumatic situations, treat it like it is just something you can strong will. It could have done so well with that, but it went in a terrible direction, and it just was never ever going to take the step and actually just calling what the parents were doing bad behavior. So what happens is you have this girl, Hailey. Her brother vanishes, and that, like, has horribly impacted her family. And I'm tired just starting to talk about this book. It had a horrible impact on her family. Her parents ended up dropping her off to live with her grandmother. But that happens because one day she just poof disappears, poof vanishes, right? In front of their eyes. That freaks them out. They drop her off with her grandmother. And now she's trying to figure out why she's poofing and stuff. It's a whole thing. So the parents are fully neglecting their child. Like, quite literally, they lost one child and then weren't there for the one that they still had. Now, I would have a bit more sympathy if it were we're struggling with money. We can't provide for you the things that you need. So we're going to give you the grandmother who can provide those things. But this was literally just, parenting became more complicated than I was expecting. Deuces. I especially find it frustrating because the way it was written, the vanishing seems to be very much an analogy for PTSD or suicide when talking about, like, the first time that she poofed. And when you look at it like that, you can see, like, maybe if it wasn't making sense when we were just talking about her, like, vanishing, like, teleporting, whatever. Maybe that would, but, like, when you think of, like, that being an analogy for PTSD, for a suicide attempt, you can see how totally fucked this is. And, like, what makes it worse is that her parents just aren't talking to her, period. Like, getting into one of the scenes that pissed me off the most in this whole fucking book is her parents drop her off at grandmother's and they don't talk to her for a month. She has to reach out to them to get them to talk to her. They invite her to their house. And she was like, I haven't seen or heard from my parents in a month. We're going to spend time together. She gets there and they're throwing a fucking house party and continue to neglect her while she's there. So she leaves because that's fucked. And then she gets in trouble. Then she, both in the narration, she is saying she was wrong for it. Her grandmother is saying, like, they deserve an explanation. You shouldn't be doing stuff like this. Like, the entire text is treating it like she was wrong and not like her parents were actively continuing to neglect her, which is so frustrating. And the thing that, like, really annoyed me at the end was, like, spoiler alert. When she's poofing, she's actually, like, traveling through time and space and reality. She changes the timeline and she's in a new reality where they still abandon her, but call her a bit more. And frankly, that's still not enough. They're still not actually supporting her. They're not actually, from what it seemed like they just call her a bit more than what had been before. You know, like, it seems like they call her a bit more and not like they're actually still, like, a regular part of her life. But the other tries to treat it like that's so much better, but also, it's the same girl. She did not live in this timeline where they were slightly more present with her. So she, like, we need to unpack the fact that she was still raised under the trauma of complete child neglect. And, like, let's hit this point that I talked about. When things get more complicated than you're prepared for, you don't get to opt for parent light and still get called a good parent. They're putting their comfort and feelings over her needs. If it was a money situation, it would be, I don't have the tools, so I will send her to someone that has the tools and still not neglect her. This is, I don't have the tools, so I'm giving her to someone else that also doesn't have the tools, so I don't have to be the one to try and figure this out. That's neglect. That is, like, that's just neglect. They are not good parents. And even in the scenario of we gave her to someone else, like, the fact that you are giving her up and not being present, even if it was what she needs, there's still a lot of trauma, pain, and abandonment for people that had been given up for adoption go through. Even if it was the best case scenario, that's still a very traumatic experience. So it's still, like, it might be the good decision for the child, but you are no longer the child's parent. So no, you're not a good parent, you know? Editing Brianna here. And another thing about this is I feel like the disconnect is often that parenting and what defines a good parent can often be defined by biology and like minimum like requirements of survival, like the necessities. But if you actually defined like parenthood and family by the actual relationship between a child and a parent, that changes a lot of things. Like it reminds me of a lot of the feelings I had about I believe it was in Cuba, where they legally defined family as a group that loves each other or something to that effect. And it's like, okay, we want to call you a family, want to call you good parents. How is this child supposed to feel loved by you dropping her off somewhere and never fucking talking to her? How is she supposed to feel loved by that? And if this child doesn't feel loved by this behavior, then no, you are not succeeding as a parent. There's also the study, I don't know what the study was called. It was a study done with monkeys in which they had a cold metal monkey mother that gave food versus a soft, warm monkey mother. These are like robots and like dolls and stuff. And if they did something to put the monkey in distress, the monkey would always go to the warm mother, the warm, fuzzy, cozy mother, despite the fact that the mother does not provide necessities. It does not provide the things you statistically need for survival, but it provides comfort, and that is very core to relationships for people. And so if we could acknowledge that and look at that and look at the ways in which a person does or does not provide core emotional support for the people in their family, that would help us understand a lot more with regards to the issues teenagers have with their fucking parents and why so many just grow up. Like, you provided them necessities, you gave them a house, you gave them food, and yet when they hit 18, they don't fucking talk to you anymore. Wonder why. I'm ranting now. I'ma go. Like, there's just no way of defining this scenario aside from these people felt like they couldn't handle it, so they wanted to be done with her. And for some reason, the book is treating it like the book is acknowledging that it hurts her, but it's treating it like it's her fault for acting in response to that neglect, in response to that abuse. And it's so infuriating. It's so incredibly infuriating that, like, I genuinely rated this book 1 star because this wasn't the only thing I rated 1 star for, but I just genuinely hated how the narration and how the story itself was just so aggressive towards her for acting in response to a traumatic and abusive situation she was in. And she literally was not acting. She just walked away. She walked away from them. And that was too fucking much. Get up. It's fine. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Legend 4. This is the exact same problem I had with Legend 4. It's like, oh, she's acting out. She hasn't been the same in the past couple months. I wonder, maybe it's because her mom died and she blames herself for it. Weird. You'd think a therapist would have gotten to that conclusion, but a therapist would have had to talk to her at least once. Bizarre. You think it's odd that your daughter is not wanting to be around you while you're dicking around with your friends, even though you haven't talked in 3 months? There's truly no way of knowing the answer to that one. I'm sorry. Hopeless. I can't stand it. Can't stand it. Like, let's just pretend we understand the cause and effect, please. Please. But like I said, this whole time, kids abso-fucking-lutely deserve better. Thank you so much for watching. Did you hit subscribe yet? Because I think you should. I think it'd go really well, actually, if you hit subscribe. I do more videos like this here. I also have a vlog channel you can subscribe to. I do vloggy videos over there. I have cats that we can hang out with. I move a lot. I clean a lot. We have fun over on the vlog channel, I swear. You can also check out my Patreon over there. If you support me for the $5 a month tier, you get a lot of my YouTube videos early. You get the notes that I take on these books. I have to go back and do a lot of notes for some of these arcs that I did. But you get those notes. You get to see my rants and ramblings. And you also get my pre-release premieres, in which I just post a chapter of a book along with some behind the scenes stuff every week leading up to a premiere of a book. And that one includes Imani and Aaliyah's fashion Bible. Is this already out by the time this video comes out? Who knows? That's the mystery of it. If you want to for sure check out books that I know are already out by the time this video comes out, check out the Queen of Thieves series. The first 4 books in the series are out. It is a series about a black girl that joins a spy team despite the fact that the government pretty much ruined her life. It's a fun time. Bring tissues. That's all from me, though. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, Valedictions, friends.